So we're in week number 2 of our two-week sermon series on the 23rd Psalm, right? And we were looking at the fact that as we get ready for Thanksgiving, we get ready to give thanks to God. We're reminded that God has good plans for us. And last week we talked about the Good Shepherd, and we talked about the fact that the Good Shepherd has good plans for us to have a good life together. And so this morning, whether you feel like you are in the desert of despair or you're in the garden of plenty or somewhere in between, we continue thinking about the Good Shepherd, and we think about God and what He has for us. And we're going to start with a little game first. We're going to play Name That Tune, and we have just one song we're going to play. Christy's already on the piano ready for us, and she's going to play the first verse and chorus of a hymn. And we'll see who can guess what that is. Some of you already got it, right? Keep playing. Just play all the way through like I asked. Many of you, as soon as you start playing it, you knew that song, right? You knew that hymn, Higher Ground, found in our hymnal. The chorus is very interesting as we think about that, and we think about who we are and about how God takes care of us. The chorus says, "Lord, lift me up and let me stand by faith on heaven's tableland. A higher plane than I have found, Lord, plant my feet on higher ground." What an interesting word right there in the middle, tableland. How often do you use that in your conversations in everyday life? How many of you have ever, besides singing this song, have used the word tableland before? Sounds like a furniture store. Pastor Mike's Tableland. Come and buy your dining room needs, right? What is a tableland? What does he mean by tableland? It is a word thought that it was actually coined by shepherds back in the Old Testament times. That it is a word coined by shepherds, and it talks about the place where they would take their flock in the summertime. Now we know that shepherds, they watch over their flock of sheep, and they would take them to different parts depending on the time of year. It depended on the weather, depending on people, depending on what food is available, what water is available. They take them all over. And during the summer, they would take them up to the higher parts of the mountains. And they would take them up there because there'd be fresher water. The food would be regrown up there because they've been away from it for a couple seasons. It would be a little bit easier to watch over them from predators and other things. And so they'd go up to this top of the mountain that was flat and kind of meadowy. The tableland, the flat land that looked kind of like a table. If we need some visual, if you've been to Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, you have been there and you've seen these mountains with the tops, and they're called mesas, right? And mesa basically means top. It means tabletop, right? And so these things look like large tables, and that's where they get the name tableland. And so the shepherds would take their sheep up there to the tableland for the summer months. And so we get this idea of tableland. And now you're thinking, that's great information, Pastor, but what does that have to do with the 23rd Psalm, right? You're kind of thinking, well, what does that have to do? And when we get to Psalm 23, we get to verses 5 and 6, we find ourselves where the language shifts. And when language shifts from God being the good shepherd to God being the good host. And it talks about the fact that God is the good host and we come to His table. And so this morning, I want to take you to the table of the Lord. Anybody need a snack? We got snacks today. Come on up. No. What table isn't complete unless it has a candle burning, right? So listen to these words from Psalm 23, verses 5 and 6. You set a table for me right in front of my enemies. You bathe my head in oil. My cup is so full it spills over. Yes, goodness and faithful love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live in the Lord's house as long as I live. The Good Shepherd has brought us through all that we needed to get through. He's protected us, He's provided for us, He's watched over us, He's cared for us, and He loved us. And now it's time to shift. It's time for the Good Shepherd to put down his shepherd staff, and it's time for him to pick up the host. And it's time now that we see that God, in the middle of everything going on, becomes the good host for us. That His love overflows and His goodness overflows as we come to the table of the Lord together. That what an interesting thought that God brings us around a table. What an interesting thought that God sees us and He loves us, and if we accept Him into our lives, then He brings us to a table of plenty, giving us all that we need. On Thursday, many of us will gather around a table. Whether you gather around a small table with just close family, or you gather around a big table with lots of family, or you gather around a bigger table with lots of friends. If you don't have a table to gather around, I encourage you to come here at 12:30 on Thursday. We will have a meal here. And many of you have already donated food to help with that meal as we open up to our community, and we invite anybody who needs a place to go on Thanksgiving to come here and have a meal. Doesn't matter why your reason is you're here. It's just, you know what? It's fun to gather together with friends. If you're not able to come, but you'd like to donate some food, there's still some things on the list out there that we need donated. So check that out on your way out and try to have it here by Wednesday. But it's just that opportunity, because we all deserve a place to gather. We deserve a table to gather around to celebrate. And that's what the good host does here at the end of Psalm 23, is He gathers us together. He takes us to the higher ground so that we can celebrate, so that we can enjoy life together. This isn't as close as it seems, but some people might get scared, so I'll move it back a little further. But at the good host table, He has a place for you. He has a place for each and every person who has decided to follow Him and be with Him. And so as we enter this time, this Sunday before Thanksgiving, I have one question for you. And the question is, have you taken your seat at His table? Have you taken your seat at His table? And so let's look at some of these seats that we have before us today. The very first seat we have is a seat of relationship. There's something special about sharing a meal together. There's something special about sitting down and having a cup of coffee together. There's something special about having that time where we get away from the things we have going on in life and say, you know what, right now it's just me and you. And we're going to sit at this table and share a meal. We're going to sit at this table, enjoy a cup of coffee. We're going to sit at this table and just have a time to talk together. There's something special about that as we gather with people that maybe we don't know as well, or maybe some people we know really well and we're catching up. There's something special about being at a table that is a little more intimate than anywhere else that we gather together. Around a table, many people gather and they laugh together. Some cry together. Some resolve conflicts together. Some do so much more. Pastor Mike and I go out to breakfast once in a while and we solve all the problems of the world, don't we? Yep. World problems are all solved now if the world would listen to us. But things come together at a table unlike anywhere else. And it doesn't matter what that opportunity looks like or what that level looks like, but gathering together. And that's the intimate scene we have here at the end of Psalm 23. We have that special time of drawing closer to God, that special time of being more intimate with God where He says, hey, I got a table prepared for you. And everything I have on the table is yours to share in. All you have to do is be willing to take that seat. Come and sit at the seat. You are welcome to be here. You are expected to be here. And I have a place for you. Look at the pronouns that are used. And I know we say pronouns and we think of all the weird stuff. But think of the pronouns again in verse 5 that we see. It says, you set a table for me right in front of my enemies. You bathe my head in oil. My cup is so full it spills over. Look at those pronouns, you and me and my. Those are relationship pronouns. Those are intimate pronouns. Someone that I know that's a friend to me. Someone that I love or someone that I respect. Because if this wasn't about relationship first, if this wasn't about knowing who the good host is first, then this verse would simply read, the shepherd sets a table for the sheep right in front of their enemies. That's how the verse would read if it wasn't meant to be relationship, if it wasn't meant to be intimate, if it wasn't meant to be someone that we know and we talk to. But instead, it's personal and it's familiar. It's saying, I know and we know. And we're in this together. And it's almost as if at that moment, the good host is speaking to me and I'm the only one at the table. That's how intimate it is. Jesus reminds us of this intimate relationship that we're called to have. He reminds us this intimate relationship that God has with us. In John chapter 10, verse 14, he says, I know my sheep and they know me. That we aren't just serving a God who sees us as another face in the crowd. We're not serving a God who doesn't notice us, but we're serving a God who knows us by name, who has invited us by name to come and sit at the table. Isn't it great when you show up to a dinner and they have a place for you? And instead of just showing up and they go, oh, you were coming too? Okay, let me scramble and get something together. But God has a place for you at his table because he knows you. He knows who you are. He knows what you've been through. He knows what you need. He knows the skills and the talents he's given you. He knows the sound of your voice. He knows the number of hairs on your head. And he has provided a seat at the table because he wants to be in relationship with you. The second seat we see today is the seat of refreshment. To me, the best part of Thanksgiving is not the food. And I know you're like, what? It's not necessarily the food. But it's that moment before we eat. It's that moment when the table is full of the food that has been prepared. That it's that reminder to me and that just thankfulness that builds up in my heart that goes, God has provided all of this for us. And we see the turkey and we see the mashed potatoes and we see the stuffing and we see even the pumpkin pie. No, some of you love that, but I can be thankful for it and not try it. But all of that stuff, and it's just that moment, that picture of going, this is a reminder of God's love for us and God's refreshment for us. I think we have a few pictures from the last Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving before that we've done here at the church. And just that opportunity to have that whole table spread. Go ahead and just go through, I think there's 2 or 3 of them. Thanks, Melissa. But just that idea of here's our spread. Here's what God has provided us with. Here's what God has for us. And that opportunity before we eat to reflect on the fact that we have a full table in front of us. And that we have people with us around the table. And that idea that God brings us refreshment. That God brings that peace in our lives that we may not know we need or know how we need it, but he's there with us. And so the next few words that they have in Psalm 23, 5 and 6 kind of give us a reminder of that refreshment that God has given us. The first is right in front of my enemies. And this may seem kind of weird at first. It may seem kind of odd that why am I sitting at a table in front of my enemies? But notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say sitting at a table with my enemies. That really what this is this is a way of saying, you know what? You have won. You know what? We have overcome your enemies. You know what? They do not get a chance to partake in my table. They've had their opportunity, they had their chance, and they have proclaimed to be our enemies, and so they don't get to sit at the table. And their eternal punishment is they have to sit in the crowd and watch us enjoy ourselves at the table. That they have to sit out, and they have to notice all the good stuff that we have here, and they don't get to partake. They don't get to be there with us. Your enemies no longer can pursue you. Your enemies no longer can harm you. Your enemies can no longer leave you feeling powerless anymore. That you have a seat at the table brings refreshment to your soul of saying, I am now free of all that. That God has taken care of it. God has decreed judgment. And those who are enemies of the table are not allowed to be there. And so it seems kind of weird, but that's what the picture is that we get. Is that those who are punished eternally, they will not get to sit at the table if they don't follow him. The second set of words is, you bathe my head in oil. Remember, in ancient times when guests would show up at a house, it was customary to have at the front of the house, have a basin of water and have a towel, and they would have some kind of perfume or cologne. And the idea was that these guests had traveled a ways to come to that house, and they'd either walked or they'd ridden on a donkey or a camel or something, but when you travel a little bit, you get a little bit smelly and you get a little bit dirty. And so the idea is that you would have this stuff available so they could freshen up before they come into the house. They could freshen up a little bit with their feet being washed off, and then they could smell a little bit nicer with the perfume or the oil that's given to them. And so that idea that when we come to God's table, that He is there and He is ready to wash our feet, to bathe our heads in oil so that we can feel refreshed, so that we can feel blessed, so that we can feel that comfort and that care that comes with all that. That the idea of the oil is an idea that is a symbol of favor and hospitality to those who come to your house. And so the good host pays attention and knows that you need refreshment and knows that you need that refreshing a bit, so he provides that oil for you. The next set of words is, my cup is so full it spills over. My cup is so full it spills over. When we go to a restaurant, what is the number one complaint that most people have with things? Usually it's my drink is empty, right? There's one restaurant in town that I like to go to and I enjoy their food, but they always seem to be slow in their kitchen. I won't say which one it is, but they have River in their name, right? But they always seem to be, whatever reason, they're short-handed in the kitchen and the kitchen's a little bit slow. And the last time we were there, the waitress, we were talking to her and interacting with her, and every time she came to the table, every few moments, she made sure our cups were full. And we were there for like 2 hours to get a meal, when that shouldn't take that long. But we walked out not upset because it took so long, because our cups were full. Because we didn't have to complain about not having enough to drink. We were able to sit and talk and interact together and enjoy that time together without feeling rushed or anything. But our cups were full. And so when we come to the table, the good host not only gives us full cups, but he gives us cups that are overfilling. He gives us everything we need and everything that we don't know we need. He's there for us, filling us with his love and his protection and his provisions, and he's doing it so much so that we're not sure what to do with it because it's not staying in. It's just overflowing. And so we feel that love and we feel that excitement. We know that everything the good host does is to the extra degree, so that way I don't have to worry. I know that God is going to be there and God is going to continue to provide more than I ever know. Listen to some of these other verses that talk about God and his generosity. Isaiah 55 verse 7, Let them return to the Lord so that he may have mercy on them, to our God, because he is generous with forgiveness. Romans 5:20, where sin increased, grace multiplied even more. And 1 Peter 1:8, rejoice with a glorious joy that is too much for words. And we could go on and we could share lots of other verses, but you get the idea that every time there is something in the Bible that's shown one way, that's shown sin is this, or bad things are this, or hardship is this, it shows that God is this, that he is more generous, he is more giving, he is more loving, and we have more than we need through all that. Another hymn that we have in our hymnal is entitled, He Giveth More Grace. And listen to these verses in chorus from this song by Annie Johnson. He giveth more grace when the burdens grow greater. He sendeth more strength when the labors increase. To added afflictions he addeth his mercy. to multiplied trials, his multiplied peace. When we have exhausted our store of endurance, when our strength has failed ere the day is half done, when we reach the end of our hoarded resources, our Father's full giving is only begun. His love has no limits. His grace has no measure. His power no boundary known unto men. For out of his infinite riches in Jesus, he giveth and giveth and giveth again. The good host has a table full of blessings for you. The good host has a table full of everything that you need. No matter your circumstances, no matter where you're at in life, no matter the ups, the downs, the sideways, however you may feel today. The good host offers you the seat right there of refreshment. He offers you the seat so that you can come and find what you need from him. Again, are you willing to take that seat? Have you taken your spot? The third and last seat that we have is the seat of acceptance. The seat of acceptance. What happens usually when we have a cup and it starts filling up with water and it starts to overfill? What do? We turn off the water. Or you might get a bigger cup. Like, hey, I need more, so I get a bigger cup. But what if God's idea wasn't that you are to get a bigger cup? That your cup runneth over, your cup keeps filling up and keeps going over, and you are not supposed to get a bigger cup and receive more of the blessing, but you're to bring another cup to the table. What if you are supposed to be the one to spread the goodness of God to others? What if you are the one who's supposed to share the message of the good host who is there to provide for people? What if you are the one who is supposed to be at your seat, but say, you know what, there's an empty seat next to me. Why don't you come and sit next to me and share in this? To share in this time, this goodness and this faithful love of God that is only found at the good host's table. We know people around us who don't know Jesus. We know people around us who need peace and who need wisdom and understanding in their life. We understand that there are people around us who are frustrated with things and how they're going for them. And we sit at the good table. We sit at the good host table. And we just enjoy the table without telling them. What if we were meant to say, there's a seat for you, neighbor. There's a seat for you, my neighbor, that you can find the answers you're looking for. You can find the blessing and the refreshment, and you can find everything that I have found in Jesus. You can find that too, and you have a chair available for you to sit in. That the one thing about God's table and God's banquet table is that it just keeps going, and it just keeps getting added tables and chairs and everything until it extends all the way to what it needs to be. That there is always room for more, and that people have the right to decide around them. And the truth is, it's our job to carry that on. My cup is overflowing, and as it overflows, it needs to show somehow. When I was getting ready, I had set all this table, and then I had a bottle here of the cider, the apple cider, the sparkling cider, and I opened it so that I could fill these cups. And even though the bottle had been sitting here for a good hour, when I open it, that sparkling stuff just wants to come out, right? And it flooded over the tablecloth. So I had to change the tablecloth real quick. Fortunately, Jim was the only one in here at the time. But now everybody knows. But it flowed out of the bottle and spread out to others around it. And I was just going to leave it, but then it took up like half the table. And so I was like, can't have that. But that's what we're meant to do. It's meant to flow out of us. And when it overflows in us, it needs to flow into other people. It needs to be shown to other people. They need to see that there is a God who loves them, and a God who is there for them, and a God who forgives them, and a God who can provide them with a brighter future. A God who's part of them. And so the good host says, I overfill your cup, not so we can spill it all over the floor, but I overfill your cup so you can share that overfill with other people and with others around you. The good host provides us with that table and with that opportunity. And so there's always a chair open. There's always a chair available. And it's our job to help fill those chairs. We provide the invite. We provide the information. It's not up to us, and it's not on us if they choose not to sit at the table. But it's up to us to offer. It's up to us to show the way. It's up to us to overfill into them and let them see that. And then it's between them and God whether they choose to sit at the table, whether they choose to be there. And so the good host has good plans. He wants us all to come and enjoy the table together. He has good plans that are meant for us to prosper and meant for us to do well and meant for us to enjoy this life and enjoy a relationship with Him that we are meant to have that was lost in sin, that was separated by that disobedience. And so the good host has those good plans, and He has those chairs ready and those seats ready for each and every one of us. And all He does is He waits and He asks, are you willing to take your seat? Are you willing to be part of my table? The good host provides us with a table. He provides us with a table that is a reminder of who He is, a reminder of what He has done for us. In Matthew 26, Jesus gives these words to His disciples. He says, while they were eating, Jesus took bread, blessed it, broke it, and gave it to the disciples and said, take and eat. This is my body. He took a cup. He gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, drink from this, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many, so that their sins may be forgiven. That's the invitation. That's what it comes down to. If we don't know what else to say, that's what it comes down to. The invitation from the good host is given to us through the death of Jesus Christ on the cross, through His body that was broken for us, through His blood that was shed for us. He paid the price that was required so that our relationship could be restored with Him. He paid the price so that we could come and sit at the table, because we have no right coming and sitting at His table. There's nothing we could do that would make us good enough. But He paid the price so that we are good enough. He paid the price so our sins could be forgiven, so we could be accepted by Him, so we could be welcomed at His table. And it's a simple prayer. It's a simple time of just saying, you know what, my ways aren't quite working. God, I want to sit at your table. Help me to learn what that means. Forgive me of the ways that I've tried to do it on my own and failed. Help me to receive your love and your forgiveness, and let's start working on this together. That's all it takes, is that simple prayer. And if you pray that prayer, then one of these seats is for you. That's how you get your seat at the table. In the Church of the Nazarene, we participate in Holy Communion like many other Christian churches. It's a reminder of the forgiveness and the love and the acceptance that has been given to us by the good host through Jesus. Whether this is your first Sunday or your 100th Sunday with us, you are invited to the table to enjoy communion with us this morning. If you are a visitor or if you're a regular attender, all we ask is that you have said yes to taking your seat at the table, that you are trying your best to follow God with your life, that you have said yes to the good host and you've taken your seat. And so in a moment, we'll play a couple songs for you. And I want to give you that opportunity to reflect for a few moments. What are you thankful for today? What has God done in your life? What has the good host provided for you? And then we'll have Pastor Michael be on one side, I'll be on the other. And all we ask is you come down these side rows here so that way you can exit to go either back to your seat either way. And what you'll do first is you'll come, and it's the same on both sides, but you'll come and you'll take a piece of the bread. And for those who have allergy issues, they are dairy-free, gluten-free, egg-free, yeast-free. It's free, like free of taste, everything. Just kidding. But they are free of a lot of allergens. I try to make sure we do that here so that way people don't have to worry when they take communion with us. But you'll come down and you'll take a piece of the bread and you'll be reminded, this is the body that was broken for you. This is the body that was broken for you, that when Jesus was on his way to the cross, and then on the cross when he was hung there to die, that his body was broken, just like ours would be when we get hit with something, or when we fall, or when something happens to it. Bad things happen to our bodies. It happened to him and his body. And so his body was broken for us. And so you can take that piece of bread, and then you can take the little cup of juice. In the Church of the Nazarene, we use grape juice as that reminder. Grape juice is that, instead of wine, we use grape juice. And it's that reminder of the blood that was shed for us. When we puncture ourselves, we bleed. Just like Jesus bled as he was whipped, and as he was tortured, and as he was nailed to the cross. And so we have this reminder that we're called to come to the table on a regular basis to remember the body that was broken for us and the blood that was shed for us. And so what I ask you this morning is, have you taken your seat at the table? Take a moment or two to reflect on what that means to you. And if you have things right between you and God, is there anything you need to confess to him, anything you need to talk to him? Maybe you need to come and pray at the altars or sit in the front row and take a couple moments to pray. And then you can come and you can take the elements and pick up the elements, and then you can eat them right away, or you take them back to your seat and say a prayer if you need to, kneel, whatever. This is a time of reflection. This is a time to come, not to be in a rush and not to just get through it because, well, it's being offered. We have to hurry up and get communion done, and it's almost 12. But it's a time to reflect for a little bit. What does it mean when I say I've taken my seat at the good host table? So as these songs play, feel free to respond however God is leading you to respond. And then when you're ready, feel free to come and partake in communion. And then be seated. And once the songs are over, I will close us in our time of prayer together. Thank you.